All right, comic people, I'm the place to be. And today's guest, I believe, needs no introduction if you follow us on the fan page on Avengers Forever on Facebook. He just completed the most recent Avengers one, 36 issues, and he's also a long running Moon Knight writer. I loved it. And that, at one point, when we had Tom Brevoort, I actually called him at one point the busiest writer in all of Marvel. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jed MacKay.
Hi.
Hey, Jed, welcome.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you for having me. I'm always happy to, talk some trash about comic books.
Oh yes, you know.
Well, hopefully we're not talking too much trash.
Well,
There's plenty of it out there, but I don't think Avengers is much.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
no, thank you. So congratulations on wrapping up your Avengers run. I rather enjoyed it. I think that's been the consensus on the website. But congratulations, and I hope that we're on to bigger and better things. All right. So my first question here is, I was just hoping that maybe you could walk us through a little bit about how your run on Avengers came about. I know. So Jason Aaron's is wrapping up his run. Did they ask you and many other people for pitches for the next run, or would they, Jed, we need you for Avengers?
It was there were other people being asked. So yeah, Tom emailed me. We've worked together on first on Avengers Mech Strike, and then later on with Moon Knight, which was fairly popular. So yeah, he said, "What do you have for Avengers? What thoughts do you have?" And that's it's a pretty big ask, to come up with something for Avengers is obviously a huge title, and at a scale that I was not used to working at, given that my prior work was Moon Knight and Black Cat and Taskmaster. So it was kind of a nerve-wracking situation putting it together. I saw some other pitches that were going in, and I didn't really like my odds, but ultimately, it ended up in my course, and we went forward with what we're working on there. So yeah, it's a pretty standard kind of like pitch off sort of situation.
hmm.
Well, that was a great decision, I think, by Tom.
Tom.
Yeah,
I mean, I stand behind it.
Yeah.
you as well. You should, sir. All right. So, can we talk a little bit about the villains you created for the series? Because I thought the villains were so original and awesome. And I actually have a couple of questions about them, but
Sure.
can we just break into like maybe the Ashen Combine and the Twilight Court, and
Yeah, of course.
how did those come about, and how difficult is it to come up with some villains to go up against the first tier of Marvel superheroes?
Yeah, it's kind of one of my particular stylistic ticks in that I like making up groups of weirdos. As people have kind of clued in on, because I keep doing it over and over again. We did that in Death of Doctor Strange. We had the three mothers. Um, then we had obviously the Ash Combine and Twilight Court and Avengers. Then the Blood Coven later and Blood Hunt. Then we got a new X-Men over in X-Men. So I like making up groups of characters probably more than I like making up solo villains. I'm not really sure why. I think it's you kind of get to throw a bunch of different things at the wall and put them all in one place rather than kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. But yeah, so for the Ash Combine, I wanted someone new for the Avengers to fight. I think oftentimes it can kind of feel like it's easier to come up with something new than to have them fight a villain they've fought before. And also, kind of one of the things with the Avengers is the best Avengers villains I find are the ones that are you can't go back to every time. Like you can't fight Kang 6 times in a run. You can't have Ultron turn up every 3 months to get beaten. So if that happens, then they're no longer a threat. They're just kind of a joke. They're a jobber. So when I started with this adventure, I said I wanted to start big, wanted to have a global threat, wanted to have something no one had seen before, and I wanted the Avengers to be put through their paces in a way that they hadn't before. 'Cause they're brand new villains, these brand new characters they've interacted with, and I just really kind of wanted to throw them in the deep end right away. Uh, the way it came about with the Avengers splitting off to fight different members of the Action Combine, looking at it now, I don't know if I would do that again. Um, in retrospect, I do wonder about the wisdom of starting off my big team book with them not being in a team. But I mean, again, this is hindsight, right? So this was 4 years ago. I came up with that plan or whatever. So, but still, I think the characters were cool. I thought the fights were neat, and ultimately, it was the way to sort of slide in the new status quo for the Avengers during my time in the book, which was them headquartered on the Impossible City in orbit around Earth. Similarly, the Twilight Court. The Twilight Court were actually, I think they came about before the Action Combine, did they? I
Yeah,
can't.
they were in Timeless before.
They were in Timeless. I don't remember if I came up with them first or the Combine. So obviously I was deep in production on Avengers by the time I was writing Timeless, given that I could use Timeless to springboard Avengers. Um, but yeah, like Twilight Court were kind of a different angle on this new villain kind of thing because they were essentially the counterfeit Avengers, right? As we now know, spoilers for a book that ended a few months ago, but the Twilight Court were created by Kang to be his Avengers. They didn't know this. That's kind of the tragedy of their character, that they were created to be heroes and they want to be heroes, despite the fact they were created by a villain to be his pet heroes. And I actually really like the Twilight Court, like the issue pretty late in the run where we see what happens to them between the time they get chucked into the timeline or chucked across the timelines by the Elder of the Universe that Kang had annoyed, to the point where they show up to the rescue, and we see where the Impossible City came from. It was one of my favorite issues. Similarly, that one where the Twilight Court come to fight the Avengers, and we see kind of like a little just a few pages of slice of kind of their life in the glass house and training and kind of like the interpersonal relationships there. It was a lot of fun. I really liked those characters a lot. I had hopes to bring them back in Nova Centurion, given that they're a bunch of knights out in space and a flying city ship, but didn't really pan out, unfortunately.
Well, I
Oh,
guess hope
and
springs eternal. You could always bring them back.
yeah, I mean they're still there. No one's killed them yet. But and again, too, I think a lot of the credit has to go with these characters. Is Daniel Acuña's great designs for the Twilight Court were awesome, and CFV's designs for the Action Combine were super gnarly. Like I gave both of them a very kind of brief on what they should look like, and both of them just took that ball and ran with it. It was incredible.
No, I think the designs were just so eye catching, and
Yeah.
they did look fantastic. Especially Ashen Combine, because I thought they looked so alien but cool at the same time.
They all had such strange silhouettes, which I think was it worked out really well. I loved it a lot.
Oh, talk about the silhouette thing, because I was an artist that I thought that we had on one time that said they have to look unique in silhouettes. Do you remember who said that, Ken?
Well, was that
Someone
Steven?
said it.
Like, I could have sworn it was Steven.
Steve
But
Englehart?
no, I think it was Grant, but
Oh, man, maybe it was Steve Grant.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was Steve Grant.
yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that what you were getting at? Was the silhouette thing?
Well, it's not. It's something that I kind of came to realize late. It wasn't until I was doing X-Men with Ryan and we were coming up with a team. I had like my original kind of team, and he's like, "This isn't gonna work because visually all the silhouettes are the same. None of them fly, none of them are big, none of them have like weird powers or whatever. If you just put them as silhouettes, they're all kind of the same person." And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So I really kind of shook things up design wise on the team and the way people moved, the way people attacked, the way people looked. Um, and since then, I've come to regard it like kind of, to realize that that's something I should have been paying attention to when it comes to character designs because I mean, like, I'm not a character designer. So that was a particular blind spot until it's pointed out to me. And I'm like, oh, right, of course, of course. So like when the first time we see the Action Combine, they are in silhouette. And I think it really works. Those designs really work there because you've got, Idol Alabaster's weird round flying face. And,
He was my favorite. He was my
yeah,
favorite
she's
guy.
great. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
Meridian Diadem's kind of like Cobra Hood, and the Dead's like Baghead. Whatever's going on with the City Smith. Yeah, like it was really cool. This is why you get a guy like CF to design characters because he's an incredible artist. Where I'm just kind of like, here's sort of a vibe that I'm kind of looking for.
Yeah, just wonder, like, I know that that's like you said, you're not an artist, but it's like, did you have an idea what you wanted him to look like? Or you just said, this is the guy, you create him and I'll approve the design.
Yeah, I mean, like there's touchstones essentially that I say like here's the things this design needs to embody or get across. Um, so we talk about like Twilight Court, like Lancelot. I'm like, well, Lancelot's very fast. She's not like a super speedster, but she flies. She's got. I'm thinking something. I think I said something in red and white. Um, and energy blades, that kind of thing. And take all those kind of bits and use that as a jumping off point to come up with something that actually is real and works.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because it's like the design work on the characters must have taken so long, just because it's just
Oh yeah.
there were so many new characters.
I would tell you what, bud. Though I said, okay, it's a good thing about Ashton Combine is I had nothing like you hadn't come on. Like I haven't even talked to you yet. Like there was someone's like internet tag was Ashton Combine. He subscribed to our YouTube page and he like started leaving comments. I was like, oh, I know what
Oh
series you're
yeah.
reading. Yeah, big compliments.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was a fun thing too with the combine because we put them quite literally on ice in that first arc, and they're always kind of like a lurking presence through the rest of the run. And there's as time went on, I'm like, what am I going to do with these guys? Like at some point, they're going to have to be a threat again. Otherwise, why do we have them kicking around? But I hadn't quite figured it out until it came time to do the end. I'm like, oh, we'll do this angle with them and finally get rid of them in a way that sort of wraps things up and ties things up in the end.
Can we talk about Mirrodin a little bit? Because I thought
Sure.
he was very striking visually. And was it intimidating? Not intimidating, but was it to introduce another aspect of King's personality or King's like one of King's future selves? Was that cool for you to come up with and kind of add that onto King's kind of legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Kang. Tom's been quoted before, I think, as saying like the Avengers have two good villains, and one's Kang and one's Ultron, right?
Yeah.
Like
He told us that.
those are like two villains that are like the Avengers villains. Um, so getting into Kang and Timeless was kind of a time when I could perhaps make up for what I later came to regard as perhaps not great characterization for him in Avengers Max Strike. Um, I doing times I kind of got more of a grasp on Kang, whereas in Mech Strike he was kind of like a bit of a scenery chewing villain. Because ultimately Mech Strike was a comic about a toy line, so it kind of they have different needs and different functions. Um, so in the first timeless, I got to do a lot of Kang stuff and really kind of get under his skin. By the time the second timeless came around, I was working on Avengers, and I think that I'm pretty sure from the get go, I knew it was going to be Kang against Kang. And the real trick was, are people going to figure this out? And I think a lot of people called it ahead of time because anytime Kang fights a mysterious person, odds are pretty good that it's Kang. um, so, I kind of at the beginning I sort of panicked. I'm like, okay, well, what if we did like a workaround, and it's really it's not Kang, but it's really like a Marcus clone, and then Kang will be revealed to be pulling the strings from behind. And Tom was like, don't overcomplicate things here. You got a plan, just like stick to it, and we'll see how it shakes out. I'm like, all right, fair enough, that's cool. And I like again, I think it probably worked. I wasn't following reception or what people were saying, so uh, you know, maybe people saw it coming, maybe people were surprised. I don't know. I talked to some people at a convention in Calgary last or 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks ago, and they're saying, "Oh, it blew me away. I didn't see it coming." I was like, "All right, cool. I'll take it."
No, I mean that's. I thought he looked fantastic. I think Mike said he looked like Cobra Commander, and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. That's a good compliment.
It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah. Um, I had another question about that. Oh, the Impossible City. I
Mhm.
loved the Impossible City, and it seems to me like the Avengers change bases of operations every series. But you not only created Impossible City for them to have a base of operations, but you actually made Impossible City a member of the team, which I
Yep.
thought was super cool.
Yeah.
And you made him actually do like Avengery type things, which I thought was awesome. Was that your way of kind of putting your mark on the series as far as having that new member? Um, or like having a member that maybe who knows if the Impossible City ever comes back, right? You know.
Yeah, I mean, that it was in part of that. I think when it comes down to it, I just think that superheroes need cool places to live. I think their headquarters is kind of a big deal. So we've got Moon Knight's got his Midnight Mission. My X-Men have got the factory, their base in Alaska, and for the Avengers being the biggest team in the world, I thought they should have like a big, super cool, unique base. And it also was very funny to me that the Avengers, who constantly have cosmic level maniacs coming after them, well, are frequently situated in one of the most densely populated cities on the planet. So I was like, if you guys are a bunch of moving targets, maybe you should go move into orbit for whoever's coming after you.
That reminded me of the Justice League the satellite era,
Yeah,
because of them being out in space. Um,
yeah. I mean, it's probably somewhat influenced by the JLA Watchtower. So the Grant Morrison JLA era.
Yeah.
that was a great era. So
Yeah,
if you
it
have
was
to
fantastic.
copy an era, hey,
Yeah.
Well, I love how it's a running joke now, it seems, across Marvel titles where they'll have the guy on the street talking and it's like, yeah, we live in New York. We know what's going to happen. We expect it and we're just going to live with it. And I hate to be their insurance agent, but it's just one of those things where it's like the populace just accept that there's something going to go down here and it's New York.
Yeah, I mean, like the Avengers being in space didn't save New York from the Blood Hunt. So
Yeah.
among other things, but the Blood Hunt was my fault in particular. So
Hmm. Yeah. Hey, you know what, Jed? You know what's funny? When your series ended, what got me so sad about it was because when your issue one came out, that's when me and Bud first met. We were just, hey, Jed MacKay's issue
oh
one of
really?
Avengers came out, and so that's how I knew how long I knew Bud. So like it would just come on like issue 23. I'm like, oh, we've known each other 23 months, and it was real easy to know like how long like I've known Bud, and
Oh, that's
it
great.
was just an easy guy in life, yeah. But like actually, I would say, but my favorite series. I don't speak much, but like,
Sure.
my favorite series on your run was actually issue 18 with Hyperion, and like
Hmm.
how he flipped it, especially his talk with Vision, in space. And I, I was telling the guys before, I get confused with when people bring Hyperion into the series. I kind of get confused of which one is this, and I kind of gravitate toward Hickman's Hyperion when like he's
Sure.
an Avenger, he's the good guy, and you made him go from the speeding bullet is coming to the planet, and then you gave him his own planet to be like Superman, right? And then at the end, he rallies on the team to I'm here. I'm here to help. And I was like, oh, this is closer to Hickman's Hyperion than anyone else. Because usually he's bad, outside of like Grunwald's run, man. Like that was I like your take on Hyperion, so good job, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was actually a holdover from I had pitched for Fantastic Four actually a couple times. It was a couple times for the same run. Ultimately, the one with Ryan, which of course is the sensible choice because it's like the best Fantastic Four run in a long ass time. But yeah, that was something that I had kicking around where Hyperion was, that the Heroes Reborn Hyperion, Jason's Hyperion, was going to be coming, on a collision course to Earth. The Fantastic Four would have to basically stop him and say like, "Oh, this world's worth saving" or whatever. So I just ended up cannibalizing that and using it for Avengers. And ultimately, I think it worked better in Avengers, given that we could chuck him into another dimension and send him to the planet that the Action Combine had screwed up previously. So kind of like tying up sort of loose ends and putting him off the side so we can use him again at some point if we want to. And ultimately, like, he is a villain, but he's a sympathetic guy because, like, he was, like the Twilight Court, he was someone who's created to be a hero by a bad person, and that push and pull of like, well, I want to do good, but everything I've been taught is a lie. Like, I'm used to being, in my mind, I'm the world's greatest hero, and none of that was true. And that's going to do a number on anyone, let alone, one of the greatest superhumans on the planet.
It amazes me that there's so many different versions of Hyperion running around.
Oh, I know. It's
Yeah.
it's insane. I had to do a bunch of like reading to figure it out when I had Taskmaster fight Hyperion in the Taskmaster series I wrote, where I was like, it was a lot of fun because Taskmaster fighting, someone who's super powerful in all respects is pretty funny because Taskmaster's just sort of a dude in a skull mask who likes to run away from things.
He is probably one of my favorite Avengers villains. So, can't really
love him. I think he's
complain.
great.
Taskmaster and Master Pandemonium. I'm waiting for someone to take Master Pandemonium out of mothballs, and I just don't know if that's ever going to happen.
He's a little tougher sell, but yeah, I've got the page where Taskmaster's about to cut Hyperion's throat there on my wall.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
awesome. Yeah.
See, all these guys have like original art on their walls. What are you guys doing? You guys even doing? Get some original art, man.
I just got Darth Vader. That's all I got.
Me?
All right. Let's talk about the Avengers lineup that you used.
Sure.
Was it painstaking to pick which characters you were going to use in your book, or I never really am sure on whether or not that's editorial that says you have to use these characters, but you got to say, obviously.
Oh yeah, I mean, I came up with that list pretty much, as I wanted it to be. Like I had a like back pocket Avengers pitch because I think I was talking to Kieran or something, and they're like, "Oh, you got an Avengers pitch?" I'm like, "Why would I have an Avengers pitch?" I'm like, "Well, Jason's going to be done soon, so it's probably a good idea to have an Avengers pitch." I was like, "All right, it's not a bad idea." So I came up with like a roster and whatever, but the idea behind it was going to be an Avengers book with no characters who had solo books. So it's going to be a book where Avengers was the home book for all these characters. Because I'm lazy and I don't like to coordinate things. However, I mentioned it to Tom, like, listen, maybe he asked me to pitch. I'm like, listen, I'm going to work on something more formal, but in the meantime, I do have this ready to go. So why don't you take a look at it and see if it's got legs in any sort of way? And Tom had a very good point where he said, this is this is good, but it's not the Avengers. This is like a Secret Avengers or like a New Avengers or a Mighty Avengers. It's not the Avengers. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. So because it was like Guardian and Tigra, and I think Scarlet Witch and Vision were there as like sort of real Avengers, and shit, who else was there? Like Weapon Age and stuff. It was basically doing what we do with the Twilight Court of having these sort of like iconic titles, like the Engineer, except the Engineer would be Guardian instead of Captain America, and the idea is that these Avengers were stepping in to fulfill those roles because the Avengers we'd normally expect to fulfill those roles aren't there. But anyways, ultimately decided like Avengers should be the book with the biggest characters that aren't like the biggest characters that are traditionally Avengers. We're not going to do a Wolverine and Daredevil and Spider-Man on the Avengers. So yeah, it was a lineup that was pretty classic. We had Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, though with Sam instead of Steve. Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Captain Marvel. But I think it had sort of a nice kind of classic ring to it. Like it was, these are flagship characters, these are heavy hitters, these are household names in a lot of ways, especially with all the movie stuff.
I'm so going on the Alpha Flight message board. I'm like, Guardian Mac was this close to being an Avenger. I'm telling all the Canadians right now. I'm like, yes. I'm like, this close. James Hudson.
Someday maybe.
Yes.
One day a Canadian will get him on the team.
We count Wolverine and Deadpool.
It's true.
So that might bring up a tangential question for me. It was with especially like the last 10 years are since the Avengers has come out of the MCU, the I guess the threats that the Avengers have faced have just been kind of like trying to one up themselves every time something comes up. Like, how difficult can that be when, I think was it a Jason Aaron's run? The first issue was like the Celestials, and I'm like, where do you go from here?
Yeah, it's
how difficult is that to kind of keep it to kind of bring it back down to earth, so to speak?
That was very difficult because again, like I'm someone who is most comfortable at sort of the street level, and so working at the not cosmic per se, but at a level of power, a level of threat that is so far beyond what I'm ordinarily comfortable with was very difficult. So that's and then balancing that so that everybody on the team can do something, everyone on the team can flex their particular muscles to do the things that they're good at.
Right.
It's tricky. It's one of those difficult parts of that book because you have to have a threat that Captain America and Scarlet Witch can fly into battle together against, and they both have to be able to do something. Whereas Captain America has a shield and a jetpack and can talk to birds, and Scarlet Witch can do anything. So that was like one of the biggest difficulties in that book is trying to figure that out and like figure out so everyone has something to do. Which is basically where I realized that Captain America's superpower is that he gives speeches that no one else can, and that's what he does. We saw him do it in Blood Hunt. We saw him do it, in The Fall of the Impossible City.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you kind of establish that this is what he does, like his designation is the icon. He's there to inspire. Then you can do a story like the Masters of Evil story, where he's on his ass and has to fight a bunch of insane super villains with like a busted arm.
Mm. That was one of my favorite issues. Actually,
I love that one. Yeah, that just
because you don't see Captain America, you don't see Sam that much kind of triumphing or succeeding against all odds. So that was really fun for me.
And it was fun to come
Yeah.
up with a new iteration of the Masters of Evil too. So, because I mean, again,
Oh, you're
that
right.
is a classic Avengers villain as well. Villain group.
And the Masters of Evil was almost like a whole new lineup from what we had been used to seeing. So that must have been pretty tough to pick who you were going to use for the Masters of Evil too, right? But
It was and it wasn't. It was just more. Again, it was just kind of like fun because you're like picking out the bits, the things that you want, and the characters you had kind of kicking around you want to do something with.
uh,
Um,
yeah, no, I was just thinking the Mad Thinker. I'm like, the Mad Thinker, I don't think has ever fought the Avengers before. You know?
and we had him in there twice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you had the Super Adaptoid, and you had his awesome android and everything, and they've fought him. But I don't think the Thinker had ever really fought him
Yeah, and
they
we had
brought him
his
in.
what were they? Manslayers, the plastoids, those
Yeah,
red
Mhm.
robots,
yeah,
which are great because that was from like the old Marvel Captain Marvel.
yeah. But I mean, so
You
much,
did
so
some deep
throwback
digging there.
stuff.
So is there any plan Twilight Court spin-off series? Please say yes.
I'd love to do one. Like I said, there are characters I liked a lot, and I had sort of semi planned to bring them back in Nova. Didn't happen because Nova didn't happen past issue 6. But like I said, they're out there, and I'd love to write them again. I think they're cool. I think they look cool. Um, and it's just yeah, I'd just love to get them back out on the stands.
Did it just work out that you ended up writing Blood Hunt, or that was your idea from the beginning, and it was always meant to be part of the Avengers in like that kind of
Hmm.
event scenario?
Yeah, I mean it was just I got an email from Tom saying, listen, we want to do a summer event, and we want you to write it because you're writing Avengers, Doctor Strange, and Moon Knight. And the reason that is important is because we we have an idea for this event. I'm like, what's the idea for the event? And Tom says, vampires. I was like, and what about vampires? Like, that's it. I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. Which I mean, it makes sense. If you're doing a big worldwide threat, the Avengers are obviously going to be front and center. And if you're doing vampire bullshit, you're going to have Doctor Strange and Moon Knight. Because Moon Knight had just got done fighting vampires. By then, he got killed. Um, so it kind of went hand in glove. And it was the first time I ever wrote an event, so it was an absolute nightmare to try to figure out how it was going to work because I've never planned anything on that scope before across 3 different titles with its own title, plus the inaugural Red Band stuff, which I'd never done before. For I think Jerry Duggan brought that up. Um, so yeah, I was like walking around my office, like tearing my hair out. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. I can't figure this out. Until I think I don't know if I asked about it or I read a thing where Kieran Gillen is very good at like writing down his thoughts on craft and how things work. And I'm pretty sure he definitely wrote something about like how he writes team books, but I thought was like enormously helpful. But also, I think he also had something about writing events. Oh no, that's because I asked him because I really liked AXE that he did, and I said, what advice can you give me for doing an event, specifically one with the Avengers around it? And he's like, well, look, it seems like insane that you've got your 5 issue event series plus 3 months of Avengers, 3 months of Doctor Strange, 3 months of Moon Knight. It's like what's important is that everything that has to happen to make this event work has to happen in the event series because people are just going to pick up the event series, and if they can't figure it out from that series, then you kind of screw it up. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
So that's and I mean, like I kind of broke my own rules later doing Age of Revelation, given that I had it split between Amazing X-Men and Book of Revelation. But in my mind, those were both the event series. So, anyways, but yeah, so Blood Hunt, everything you needed to know about Blood Hunt happens in those 5 issues. The tie-ins explore those ideas further. Avengers, we had that. Probably some of the most fun I had writing Avengers was with that 5-man fill-in squad during those 3 issues of Avengers with Steve and Hazmat and Kate Bishop Hawkeye and Herc and my guy Quicksilver. After that, those 3 issues, I was like, I gotta figure out a way to get Quicksilver on the Avengers. And I'm like, also, they already have too many Avengers, so it didn't end up happening. But yeah, I loved writing Quicksilver. He's great.
I actually thought those 3 issues of Avengers was a great idea to kind of, you had the main squad over in Blood Hunt, but to have
Yeah.
those 3 issues, I mean, you just have something else going on in Avengers for those 3 issues. I thought that was, I thought those issues worked better than most of the other times I see some stuff happening during the event books, where you really kind of have to play catch up, or it seems like almost like a rehash. Sometimes they just reprint some of the same pages in the same books.
Yeah, I mean it's tough too, because like if all your guys are in the event book, what's going to happen? Excuse me, in the original book, but you still have to make it worth people buying it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? You know what I mean? So it was really tricky. But I think I learned a lot from that specifically. Going forward, I kind of feel like 5 people on a team is a real sweet spot. Also, I got to use Baron Blood, who I love, who is like, an old-timey British noble who got hypnotized by Dracula into being a Nazi, which is great. So, yeah, having him in was a good bit of fun.
Vampires is always fun. We always
Yeah.
do something good with vampires.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, this is my last Avengers question, so then we move on to something else, unless Mike and Ken have Avengers questions, that I didn't touch on. I want to talk about events as a whole and things that maybe you brought up in Timeless and the, what was kind of supposed to happen in the overall lore of your book. And it seemed to me like your tribulations kind of got truncated a little bit, because you had names like cannibal,
The cannibal culture.
and so there was a bunch of them that I was like, oh, are we just not going to get to that stuff? But I mean, and I'm probably speaking out of school because I have no idea, but it seems to me like the overall structure of the Avengers publishing, with these events every few months where the Avengers have to be involved, right? Did that affect your story at all, or did it come to an unnatural end, or you had to change things midstream?
Yeah, so some things got changed around, in part because again, looking back over the last 3.5, 4 years, I feel like I kind of fell victim to my own problem of not sticking to my own plan, of saying, okay, here's these tribulation events, every one of these is going to be a big deal, et cetera, by moving in different directions for other stuff. It's just as time goes on, things come up, you feel like they have to be involved. Like, we did the 2-issue X-Men versus Orcus thing, where I was like, well, it feels like the Avengers should be involved in this. And that's one of the problems with the Avengers, not problems, challenges, is that given who they are, you feel like they should be involved in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing when to let things happen without the Avengers being involved, or at least being involved in your own book, is, I think, one of those skills that I needed to be better at. So I kind of started veering away from the tribulation event stuff. When looking back, I probably should have been hitting it harder. Then ultimately, we get the call saying, because of the way publishing is working, we're going to be wrapping up Avengers 36. And I was like, okay, well, I got to figure out how to make all this make sense. Hence the kind of workaround with Kang and Mirrodin getting essentially thwarted by the entire setup that they had thought they were following, and then essentially shooting at it by using that rupture in space to get to the remains of Battle World. So yeah, things definitely changed from when I was starting it out. Some of those things were in my control. Some of those are things looking back that I would do it differently now. But yeah, had the Death Moon. We had the King of Magic, the cannibal culture. Shit, what else was there? Those are three I remember off the top of my head. That said, some of those I'll just keep in my pocket and do them somewhere else. They won't necessarily be called that. They won't be tribulation events, but the things that would have happened in that tribulation event I'll use for something else, because a lot of it is stuff that I had set up in other books that hadn't paid off, or I had even set up in Avengers or this or that or whatever. Um, there's no it wasn't a coincidence that the first villain they fought was the giant robot dude in that first issue. That was meant to be a thing that would happen, that would have an effect further on, but again, just didn't really shake out. You don't always get to do everything you want to do in a run of comics. So especially
was
a
the
book as
plan?
busy as Avengers.
Sorry. Was the plan to be around a 3-year run ish, or did Armageddon kind of put an end cap to that? Like, was it meant to be kind of a 4 or 5-year run, but plans changed, or?
Um, with an ongoing like that, I hadn't really had kind of I knew how it was going to end. I didn't know when it was going to end. Given that it's just kind of with an ongoing, kind of go for as long as you think you can. That said, it should be noted that Avengers didn't end at 36 because of Armageddon. This is different. Like, Armageddon didn't come about till decision was made to finish Avengers at 36. So that's they don't have anything to do with one another. But yeah, I had a fairly nebulous kind of idea of when I wanted to end it. It's just that timeline got truncated a bit. Just kind of due to the vagaries of publishing.
Did you grow up an Avengers fan, or was that something that you came about when they told you you needed to write it?
Oh no, I was like the Avengers. I tell people a lot. I grew up reading my dad's old comics, and so he collected a lot of Avengers stuff, that's why Scarlet Witch and Vision were on my Avengers team, because they were like mainstays in the 70s. But yeah, one of my favorite issues when I was a kid was that I can never remember the number. It was issue of the Avengers, and they're in Vietnam, and they fight the Crimson Dynamo, Titanium Man, the Radioactive Man, and then the Slasher. And had a great cover where there's the Avengers on one side, I don't remember what they called the Titanic Trio, I think, or something like that, plus the Slasher. And Mantis was obviously there doing some Mantis bullshit. So yeah, it was great. So yeah, I've always got a kick out of the Avengers. They're the biggest team, but also a bunch of people having personal problems at the same time. It was great stuff.
Were you like, who's this guy Nomad in this issue?
I didn't have any Nomad issues, but there's a lot of kind of coming out. I was like, who's this Yellow Jacket character?
That's my favorite Hank Pym costume.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, if I can, maybe let's transition into Moon Knight a little. So, since you were writing so many series, did you read or were a fan of West Coast Avengers? Because how Moon Knight came about, you had the Shroud, you put Hank Pym in it, Tyra, and I was like, I think Jed MacKay was a West Coast Avengers fan, because it just even with your characters you used, like you said, you had a wish list for the series you wanted. I just thought that roster connected more from your writing, as in oh, you really like these characters, and you put them in Blood Hunt and stuff like that. And I was so I was just curious, were you a West Coast Avengers fan, or was it just because these were characters that didn't have, like you said, their own titles?
I hate to break your heart. I was not a West Coast Avengers fan. The West Coast Avengers stuff I read was because it was when I took on Moon Knight. So when I took on Moon Knight, I was going back and reading every appearance of Moon Knight I could find, and I knew he was on the West Coast Avengers. And one of the important things about doing research I find is you find out which characters know each other and what experiences they've had together. Because nothing's going to get someone on your ass more than if your main character sees someone and says, "Hey, nice to meet you." You're like, "Well, actually, they met 3 times over the last 35 years in this, and this issue." Um, so I was doing a lot of reading, and then I saw that's how it was Tigra. I know it's had the relationship with Dr. Pym, and then Tigra and Pym stuff I remember from reading Avengers Academy, which I was a fan of. Um, which I referred to in the Bloodhound Avengers series, where Hazmat and Hercules are talking about when he turned up as the wrestling coach there. And I saw Tom and Nancy Grummett at a convention in Montreal a couple of years ago, and because Tom had drawn that issue, and Nancy said that she didn't let Tom sell that page of Naked Hercules because that was hers, so she was keeping it.
That's nice. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of Moon Knight questions, but I think Ken might have stolen one of mine. That's okay, Ken.
Hey.
How important is supporting casts in solo series like Moon Knight? This is kind of like a general question, but
I think it's really important. And again, that's one of the things I really like about coming up with a solo book is, seeing who the supporting cast is going to be. Because the supporting cast is great because it's not like a team book where they have to have the same amount of spotlight. So you can just kind of take them in when you got something good for them. And then if not, you just kind of push them off to the sides. The main character can do their thing. And Moon Knight's supporting cast kind of came about fairly organically as I was going along. We have Reese turns up in the first issue, Soldier turns up in the second. Hunter's Moon first turns up in the first issue. 8-Ball even turns up in the first issue, though I didn't know he was going to join the crew at that point. I just liked using 8-Ball whenever I needed someone to get beat up by a hero. And it got to the point where I was like, listen, either I got to have Moon Knight have him join the team or have Moon Knight kill him. So,
supporting characters for me, that was kind of my favorite era of Avengers, because that's like my favorite Avengers are all started off as supporting characters. So
yeah, and I mean it's fun to see those characters kind of come from the periphery and then become mainstream. Like your Carol Danvers is kind of like being there as a government agent, then gradually brought in as a superhero in her own way, and then to the point where when I was writing Avengers, she was running the team.
Like I know Mike, he's even stated that like during your Moon Knight run, your development of 8-Ball went from like a nobody to like, oh, this he actually cares. You cared about the character. Like he's helping out Moon Knight. He's like risking his like own life, and then he gets attacked by dark I call him Shadow Moon Knight, and and I was like, oh, there's some development here. It's nice. That was yeah. Like, that was good stuff there, Jed.
It's one of those, like I said, it's one of those things that just kind of like happened organically because I had no plans for that at the get go with 8-Ball. It's kind of like my running joke that I just put him in anything where someone needed to beat up a loser supervillain. So by the time we got to 25, I was like, okay, I understand how this is going to go. For that point, I knew that we were going to kill Moon Knight in 30, and I knew I wanted that last page to be all Moon Knight's crew, basically, and recreating that first page, Moon Knight #1. I wanted 8-Ball to be there.
Oh, so you spent your time on Moon Knight. I kind of feel like you focused more on the spandex part of him than a lot of the writers previously the past few years had spent on his mental health issues. But I kind of feel like you kind of got back into the superhero in bit. Not that you ignored his DID, you brought it up quite a bit, but like previous writers, basically that was the focus of the series. How important was it for you to get him back and level him up into the superhero crowd and kind of make him a hero despite his, I guess, issues then? Because
that was when Tom asked me to pitch for Moon Knight, and other people were pitching because he didn't really know what he wanted the series to look like. But there's a TV show coming out, so obviously we're going to get a comic book out. So his two touchstones were like, I don't know, I don't really know what I want this to look like yet, but I don't want this to be a story all about his DID, and I don't want this to be a story all about the Khonshu stuff, because without fail, one of those two becomes what that entire series is about. Which, I mean, it's fine, it makes sense. It's what he's largely about. You know, no one's surprised when the Captain America story is about surprise America. Um, but it had been a while since we'd done a story not kind of revolve around one of those two poles. So I wanted to see
Right.
what does this character look like when it's not about one of those two things. So we had Khonshu in prison, or in prison in Asgard, after the Age of Khonshu stuff that Jason did in Avengers, and the DID stuff. It was basically sort of a mystery because we didn't acknowledge it really at all until uh, issue like I don't know 14, 13, 14, something like that. It was into like the second arc after like the first 10 issue arc, 12 issue arc. So it was a bit of a mystery, but also it was a bit of time to establish Moon Knight outside of his DID as a character and what he does and kind of how he set up his new life. It's also time for me to get a little better educated on DID. Historically, it's a disorder that has been wildly mischaracterized in media forever, and I didn't want to just be another version of that. So I talked to some people who were kind of at the time to help me figure it out and understand it a little better. And yeah, we brought it in, and I think it worked. I think I always look back at my own stuff and think, well, I could do this differently or could do this better. Like, I would like to take time in the future to spend more time with the Moon Knight system with Jake and Steven and see how things are going and how things are working, because it is an important part of the character. It's just we've been largely focused on sort of this kind of like high momentum superhero stuff in that respect. So we'll see how it goes as the series progresses.